Okay, I'm just gonna clap to get the sound lined up. Cool.
Check, check. You doing all right? Can
Yep.
you hear us?
Levels are good.
Okay. So, how do we,
Thanks, Murph, for asking us about this stuff.
you want to know
How did this begin, Granddad?
How did this begin? Well, it was in the late 1964, and I was at Stanford University working on my master's degree, and Joyce
I was there too.
was there teaching, and she had a teaching job set second grade. And background is that my younger brother, Gene, had been on the Mississippi Voting Rights Project the year prior to that, in '63, in the summer. And he went with a bunch of other college students from out in California, where we grew up. And they went to register voters during that time, and that was the time when they had serious problems, and people were killed as part of that deal. And my brother was more adventuresome than I was, and so I said, well, gosh, I'm not quite ready to do that. You know, we were married at the time and ready to try to continue on with careers and the like. So I was walking through the campus one day, and I saw a kiosk, and the kiosk said, would you like to help contribute to civil rights causes, and how about teaching in the South? And it was an organization called Recruitment for Southern Teachers that had been started by a Stanford student in physics the 2 years prior to that, where he went and taught for a year, I think at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. And he had seen that there was a significant need for college instructors who particularly had technical backgrounds, which I had, to teach mathematics and statistics, computer science, and other sciences as well. So,
And all of the campuses at this time were really aware of the civil rights and of, wow, look, think about all these blacks, and are they getting the kind of education that we just sail into? Whoa, what about that?
yeah, so it was part of the tenor of the times then, that it was very much on the consciousness of everybody. And this looked like a possibility that we could contribute directly to that. And so I sent in the card and followed up with Recruitment for Southern Teachers. And they put me in touch with the fellow who had started it. And I filled out an application with a resume and sent it around. They sent it around to various colleges that were part of the UNCF, the United Negro College Fund.
And he talks to me and he goes, hey, how about if we just drive down to Alabama and teach down there, you know, where all those people are getting shot and all those kids are getting attacked and people are beginning to be put in jail all over the place. Let's just go down there and we could probably teach at one of those colleges. What?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There had been just that previous summer, the rides, there was freedom rides that were taken by integrated groups that were going throughout the South to push for civil rights. And one of the buses got attacked, I think, and burned just down the road there near Gadsden, Alabama. And
But we decided, yeah, we should do this. We'll do this. We'll go together and we'll do this. So first, we go back to California and we tell our parents. Now his parents, because they've already had Eugene doing all this stuff, they're all psyched about it. But my parents, we needed to talk to them about this. And so I went around, besides talking to my parents, I purposely went to all of my family's best friends and told them what we were doing and why we were doing it. And then we got in our little Chevelle, a little blue Chevelle car with California license plates on it, and we start driving across to Alabama.
With
And
the trouble
I knew that we would die. But obviously, we didn't. So we drive across the country, and we find Talladega, Alabama. And we drive in, and we look around, and we drive in, and we go over to the campus. And we pull in, and we go to the president's office. Bruce has to have an appointment with the president.
Herman Hodge Long, PhD from Michigan, University of Michigan, and he's the president. And he's the one who hired me. I had sent my application around to several schools, and so he had a position open for an instructor of mathematics, since I didn't have a PhD. I only was getting a master's at that time, and to teach mathematics, as well as to help them install a new computer system that had been donated to the college by some grocery company out in California, and it was
a computer. Now, do you think about what a computer was in 1965? This computer took the entire room up, and it came in all these pieces and all these boxes, but we weren't there yet. While he's in talking to President Long, the president's secretary, wonderful Mitty Tucker, looks over at me. I'm sitting there waiting for Bruce to come out, and she says, "Say, can you type?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess so." So she pulls me over. I sit down in front of, the old typewriter there, and she says, "Okay, here's a letter. Type it, please." So I typed this letter, and she said, "Great, you are hired." And I thought, "What? You are hired?" She says, "You are going to be the secretary to the dean of the chapel, the dean of students, and one other thing."
The men's coach.
Anyway, so then we go out, and they take us to where we're going to live.
Which is at Foy Cottage. And so it's a little place where faculty members were housed. And it's very interesting to note that at that time, the number of students was about 500 students at Talladega, pretty small college. And the faculty was pretty well integrated. It was about half blacks and half whites, but there were a number of us young folks who had come from major colleges around the university that were there for a year or two to do what we were doing, to teach courses in science and mathematics and things of that sort. So we settled into the
Foy Cottage, which
Foy
was like a
Cottage.
big rooming house. There were lots of different, we all had a room and this big house.
Yeah. And then so we began to get organized for the fall, and I was teaching mathematics. Basically, it was college algebra, and we met students and met the other faculty there, and there are many, many stories to go along with that.
Now, when you go downtown at this time in Talladega, Alabama, to get your hair cut, you go to the barbershop and...
Yeah, well, they often, as they do, ask you, well, what are you doing in town and all that kind of stuff. We obviously were not from there because we didn't sound like Southerners as we've become now, but more. But and they tell them, oh, we teach at the college, Talladega College. Well, that was quite a rude shock to them. They had no idea as to what in the world these young white folks were doing and living.
And we had
on
a
campus.
map of the town, and the map was carefully colored to show, get that? Where the colored people lived and where the white people lived. And the map of the town made that all really very clear. Then, one day we went in to get our Alabama driver's license. And we go in upstairs to the place where they issue the licenses. And we sit down. We have to fill out a form, of course. And so I get a form, he gets a form, we sit down. And I sit down, there's another lady sitting at the table where I sit at the table, he sits down at this other table, we fill out all this stuff. And I do kind of notice that this lady gets a little uncomfortable. And pretty soon she gets up and she kind of just nervously leaves. And then when the thing's all over and we go to hand in our papers, on the way down the stairs, Bruce says to me, "Did you not see that table where you sat down said colored? That's why that lady got upset, because you aren't colored." And she was, and so she felt to leave.
Yeah, so that was very characteristic of, there was a lot of tension going on. You have to understand that these cultural things had gone on for decades. And remember the timing now. In 1964 was, I think, the Civil Rights Act was passed. 1965, the Voting Rights was passed. And that changed everything. But
Well,
things
not enough, as we
began
see
to
today.
start. That began to start then. So this was a time of transition, and schools were just beginning to the process of having to integrate forcefully. And of course, you've heard the general cultural mantra was separate but equal, which was anything but true, as I was to certainly find out later. So the educational systems were vastly different.
And the dean took Bruce on several trips out to look at the schools from which our college students came. They had rotten, falling apart books that had been donated to them after the white schools got rid of them and were throwing them away. Oh, let's give them to those black schools. That was all the books those schools had.
Right. So, and then I remember going into a high school where it was really a school that was multi-grade. It was probably 6th grade all the way through 12, small town, and went in their chemistry laboratory, and they had a couple of Bunsen burners and a periodic table on the wall, and that was it. And whereas we had come from colleges, and of course I was studying at Stanford University and had the opportunity there, and we had all the equipment and the latest stuff, and high schools did too. I mean, went to high school, I had laboratories that had lots of analytic equipment and everything. These guys had nothing. So anyway, it's not surprising that the students who came often were behind the typical freshman entering education.
But they were
standard.
good students and they
Yeah.
wanted to learn and they were awesome.
Absolutely. So, and that was a whole other sort of thing. So, back to the computer thing, that was one of the major tasks that we had. And they had sent me off to go up to Dartmouth College to visit